Alright, time for some more advanced tricks and to customize your spread in some creative ways. So first, let's go down to this box here, and what I want to do here is I want to give it some rounded corners. So I'm going to click on my photo here, and up on the toolbar you've got a dialog box where you can actually choose different corner effects. So I can say I want this rounded, and I want it rounded by, let's say, 2 picas. So I'm going to go in and change it to 2 picas. So I have nice rounded edges, but the way I'm looking at it, I don't like the way that it's rounded on the inside. So what you can actually do in CS5 and newer, you can click on the corner and click on the little square, and then you get a corner handle and you can change it. And if you hold on your shift key, you can actually click one corner at a time and just change one corner at a time. So I can take this and square that off. So now I have my corner square here, and I'm going to do the same thing with my corners here. Click on the handle, hold down my shift key, and just drag in the one corner to give it a special effect. Now I want to get at this photo, but it's covered by text box. So again, I hold down my control key to select it. Then I can click on the yellow box, hold down my shift key, and drag that corner in as well. So now I've got some rounded corners. The last thing I'd like to do is I'd like to give these photos that are embedded here a white outline, or what's called a stroke. So again, I can select the photo, I can go up here to our stroke, I can say I want it white, and it gives me a white outline, and I can change how thick it is. So I could make it a 2-point stroke. So you can do it here. You can also, on the side, go into your stroke menu, and you have some more settings as to how it lines up the stroke, to the inside, to the outside, and to the middle. And this is important when you're lining up multiple items or you're using a grid design. So I can go in here, I can say I want a 2-point stroke. Oops, that's again my text box, which I don't want. So remember, control, select this frame, 2-point stroke, and it's applied my stroke for me here. Okay, so that's the stroke on your photo now, and rounded corners. Now, one other thing you can do is you can create on the bottom of your page, you can add a page number or a folio that will repeat on every page in your spread. So I'm going to go to the Pages tab, and you will see I have the page I'm working on. I have some others that I'm going to be using momentarily for a demo, and I have up here what's called my master, and it's called a master, and you see little A's in the corners, meaning that these pages use that master page. You can create multiple masters and apply them to different pages, but that's a whole other level of complexity we won't go into. But I'm going to click on my master page, and I'm going to create a text box, and I am going to add a page number. Now I could just put in page number 24, for example, and then every page would say number page 24, which is not very useful. So I'm going to select that text. I'm going to apply my style that I want to use here. I'm going to go to my paragraph styles, and I'm going to click on folio. So I have my folio style that I've pre-applied. And then I'm going to create type, insert special character, markers, and markers, current page number. So I can put that in here, and it will say A because I'm on the A master. And then I can say, give it some space and go Japan trip. Okay. And here's also a little note here. This is showing up in with a pink underline because the font that I'm using, Calvin, up here is in brackets, meaning it knows that I want to use Calvin, but the computer I'm working on does actually not have Calvin installed. So you could either change the font, change your style, or apply it the way it is, and when you go to proof, hope that your proofing computer has that font, or let your editor make that decision. But for now, I'm just going to go here. I'm going to take this and move it down so it's just below my margin, so I know it's not going to run into any of the layout that I've created. Put that down here. Okay, I'm going to give that space. Maybe I'm going to want a little bit of space between my page number and my lettering. You could also make it multiple objects. Anything you place would be okay. And because I want to make sure I'm using a font that actually exists, I'm going to, let's say, go to Allegro. Or actually, I'm going to use my headline font, my secondary headline font, and make sure that this is big enough to actually get that. That's way too big though. So I will hold down Shift and Control at the same time and scale it down slightly. So I'm going to stay with that. It's just another little trick. Now, when I go back to my pages, and I double click on my page number, you'll see now it says page 2. When I scroll down the page to my other ones, it'll say page 4 down here. So that is repeated on every page that we have. Okay. Now I will go into some more tricks. So drop shadows. You can, very easy, you can go into your object, and then you go Object, Effects, and Drop Shadow. It will pop open a dialog box. You can click on Preview so you get an idea of what it looks like, and you can change your settings as to where it comes from, the color of the drop shadow, and if you have colors selected, you can use swatches, or you can use the CMYK picker, and you can create your own color that way for your drop, so you can see where, what, depending what color you would like to work with, you can create any color you would like in your mix here. So let's say that's my shadow. Click OK, and I can change my offset, but I can leave it like that. So drop shadow. Next, feathering. Same kind of thing. You select your text. You go Object, Effects, and you can go into Feather, Directional Feather. Here we go. And again, with our preview, you should see the effect. If I bring that over, actually I'm going to apply this style and increase it. There you go. You can see how it blends in, and you can see how much feathering do you want on the effect. Say OK, and I can bring that over my design. You can see how it's sort of washed out. So that's a neat little effect. You can do it sort of feathering is sort of a directional transparency, which leads us into our next one. So again, we can go into Effects, Object, Effects, okay, Transparency, and again we have the menu here, and transparency, we can just set the opacity and change our slider and change the entire transparency of the object. And another one, bevel and emboss, again, Object, Effects, and we want to go into our bevel and emboss. So again, you can get some different effects here just by clicking the default value. Gives me a smooth technique. I could get a chisel, a hard chisel, and so on. I can get different ones. I can play with the angle where the light comes from and get different results from that. Okay, and click OK and leave that. Okay. Now, so those are some basic text tools, and this will work with any object, not just with text. Now, there's some other tricks. In this case, I'm going to embed the photo inside the text. So I have a piece of text here, and I have to create that into outlines. So actually, I've already typed it into outlines here, and the way to do that is you would type in, your type, and then you have your type selected. Go Type, Create Outlines, and it becomes a graphic. So this is already my graphic, and now what I can do is I can take my photo, and I could bring a new photo and drop it in here, or in this case, I want this photo. I'm going to right click on it and going to cut it out. I'm going to select my frame, which is made out of text, and go right click, and I'm going to go paste into. So now I've got my photo inside the text, and I can move it around. I can resize it, and I can see where it ends up. So that's a quick way of framing photos inside a text piece. Now, text wrap is a little bit different. If you want to wrap your text around a photo, you could select the photo itself and give it text wrap. We've already shown that earlier, so I can just set the text wrap up. So that's okay. And my headline here has gone away. So if I want to keep that, I can select the text box, go Object, Text Frame Options, and I can see Ignore Text Wrap. So this here case, it does not wrap. Now, this photo here is wrapping around the box, but I would actually like to wrap it around the girl. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it an offset value here, how much space there is. Then I can go with my white pointer tool, and I can hover on the corner, and I can pull in my text, and I can bring in the places where it actually, that's the photo. I need the wrap. So I can pull in the corner of the wrap. I can also click on the line, and I could take my pen tool, take my pen tool here and create a few more points on that line. And oops, I clicked off the line, so I've got to make sure I'm on my text wrap. And take my text tool, hover right over it, and it will give me a little plus sign. So I can click on there and I can create a couple more points. Again, just make sure I have a little plus. It's a little bit finicky. So I'm just going to go back to this here, and I've made the one plus sign. So I'm going to take that one and I'm going to pull that out here and pull this one in here. And now if I bring my text box with my pointer tool closer in, it will wrap around your text. Now you could get really finicky and get very close, but that sometimes looks awkward with text, but that's the basic principle of wrapping your text around the objects. Now if you have, you can also create compound images. What that means is I can take this image box, so I'm going to make that smaller. I'm going to make some copies of that image box, and I just put it slightly over my text, so that's not very good. I'm going to take that image box by holding down my Alt key. I'm going to make a copy of it. So I'm going to make 1, 2, there we go, 3 copies. And I'm going to just make sure they line up nicely. So I'm going to select all 4 together, and then I'm going to create, go Object, Pathfinder, and I'm going to say Add. So now it's created these 4, and they actually have become one object. So now if I grab my photo, they're actually spread over all 4 images. And this is neat because you can also take something like a circle, for example, and if you hold on Shift, you get a perfect circle. You place your circle right over the image, and now again I'm going to select them together, go Object, Pathfinder, and say Subtract, and it's going to take that piece out. So I can create a compound shape and still have just one photo in here, and which is sometimes very creative if you're creating your yearbook spread. In a similar vein, you can create an extract, which means you can take a shape using that Pathfinder tool and put your photo inside that. I mean, you could do it in Photoshop, but it's also possible to do it right in InDesign. So I've gone around with my pen tool and I've clicked and I made the selection. And it's not great, but I can modify it a little bit. I'm going to fix it up a little bit so I don't chop off parts of her face. I'm going to pick up a couple of these points and create a little bit better selection. So you can move that just as before when I was talking of the changes. You can pick up the corners, say, okay, I need a little bit more of her costume here. I want a little bit more of her hair here. And move that up. Alright, I'm going to look around here. I have another corner. I want to, move her costume in. Move this out. Alright. Okay, so now I've got a pretty decent selection of her. Now it's on top of my image, which I don't want. So I'm going to move it behind, and then I'm going to intersect the objects. And you need that intersect because of the way the layering works. So I'm going to go Object, Arrange, Send to Back, so you can't see it. Then I'm going to take my selection tool, select both the image and the shape that I made, right click on it, and then I'm going to go Object, Pathfinder, and Intersect. And now I have my image extracted. And just like you can control how images are placed within boxes, you can also control the way text is placed. So in this case, I have a text box here, and you could go into your text box with your text tool, and you can indent, so you can control how far the indent is, and you can also shift lines up and down using what's called the baseline shift, so I can move things up and down. But what that actually does, it modifies a paragraph. So if I have just one paragraph selected, I can indent this one paragraph more or less, and I can shift the baseline of that paragraph more or less. So that, but it's really a paragraph level editing. What I can do is, if these settings are 0 and my baseline shift is 0 as well. So if this is, I'm going to go back to my box and take my text tool. I'm going to clear those to make sure it's all consistent, because that's the danger by using a paragraph based modification, is that you won't be consistent as you go through and you wonder why things are not lining up properly. So if I go in here, you can see my baseline shift is